Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, John Nash. We are the Focus Group. Thanks for joining us here live. We're here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. East. And, of course, you can catch our latest podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned, which is released on Tuesday mornings. And then, of course, an audio version of this show, for those of you who still like to consume the audio part, is released on Saturdays. So you can find out everything you need to know about the show at focusgroupradio.com.
Plethora of media.
As promised, John and I are huge fans, as you know, over the years of Project Runway. And we're delighted to be able to welcome Mondo Guerra. Did I say that right?
No.
Guerra.
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 Yeah, it's like Sarah, but with a G, Guerra.
From season 8 of Project Runway. More importantly, though, you won the All-Stars.
The first
The first All-Stars. But here's what so before we get into all that, me messing up your last name, why don't you just go by Mondo, like Cher or Madonna? I mean, I'm sure
that's what my family calls me, Mondo.
Mondo.
Yeah,
Right, so can we just call you
call
Mondo?
me Mondo.
There we go.
It's right up there with Sting.
With Sting, Madonna, Lady Gaga,
50 Cent.
Cher, 50 Cent.
50 Cent, yes.
No, 50 Cent.
So thanks for taking time. I know you're busy, and we were talking about dining out for life and some of the other things you have going on. So rather than us going through all the information we have, why don't you catch our listeners up on what you've been doing?
Oh, geez. Well, right now, I don't know. There's been a lot of shifts in my life since the new year, and right now I'm kind of back in the freelance world, which is very interesting. I am doing a lot of commissions for queens from the Drag Race.
So the latest RuPaul's Drag Race?
The latest RuPaul's Drag Race. So I
Is
did.
this season 10 we're on?
It's season 10, yes.
Yeah.
And so last year I did one of Peppermint's finale gowns, and then I guess word got out and all these queens started reaching out to me before the season started. And it's been really fun because I started in costuming, so I feel like I'm going back to my roots. Every queen is like a different character, so it's fun to really create for these individual personalities, and trust, they are definitely personalities.
How did there have been so many people that have gone through that Project Runway franchise. Is there a fraternity of you, men and women? Or
I call it more of a sorority.
Sorority?
Because we can talk some smack about each other, and it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
Your season in particular was very powerful, and I remembered the challenge that you actually came out as HIV positive. I think it was the HP pattern challenge or something, and you had built into your garment all the plus signs.
Yes, the positivity print.
And then when the runway show happened, and you had to explain to the judges why this occurred, it was an incredibly emotional moment, and I thought all your work on that season was fantastic. It was very fun. So I guess the broader thing I want to ask you is, as a designer, as a fashion designer, you are basically a storyteller.
Yes.
And when you talked about the RuPaul the costumes you're doing, stuff you have to get to know that character and tell their story through what they're wearing, right? So with your freelance now, are you able to do more of that than you were before, or?
Yeah, when I was doing costuming, I always like to approach every character and kind of think about what their secrets are, and even if I don't really
know. You make
know
those up, or
I make them up. Okay, their favorite color is da da da, or maybe this is what they ate, or whatever it is. I just like to get to know them in my own head. I think it makes the process a little bit more fun, and it makes me get to know them better. And I definitely have more of a focus, and so that really allows me to expand on the initial idea.
Which is go ahead, Tim.
No, so do you still like doing costuming more than, I guess I would say, traditional clothing?
Well, I think, with doing collections, you stare at a concept and you have a color story and you stick with that for 3 months of your life, and it can get it's a lot,
right.
And you do it day after day after day. But now I can go back from one project to the next project and change it up every other day, and I'm not looking at the same colors, I'm not working with the same materials. So it's been really, really fun.
But on that collection level, that's a 3 or 4 month window. You're being critiqued on it as well. Whether it's
Yeah.
a buyer or whether it's a creative director, or I'm not sure the structure of creative management. And
I think for me, the thing that I deal with the most is that because I came from a platform like Project Runway, there's the public, and there's Instagram, and there's social media, so they know me for, and I guess I kind of like, I do it too. Like, I'm wearing polka dots. I'm known for polka dots, and I'm known
You
for
get
like
typecast.
Yes,
He's going to do
yes.
black leather.
Yes.
He's going to do polka dot. Right.
Black leather. What?
Polka dots.
Okay. But no, yeah. So like you said, yeah, I'm kind of typecast, and I feel like the audience really expects me to do one thing, and so it's really challenging for me when I put something out
that goes against
against what is expected, and that can be very, very scary. But I've also learned to accept it and know that the work is good. The work is still okay.
How much of we had the pleasure of interviewing Tim Gunn many years ago when we were on Sirius Satellite Radio, and one of our favorite guests. I felt this. I'm wondering. Is he really the true mentor we see? I think there's a reflection of him is accurate on TV. And how much do we not see of you guys processing the critique? And because it's very it comes in, it's almost like a bump, 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 walk away, and then you got to live with the emotion of that,
Right. Well, Tim walks in, and he, it's definitely set up. The camera's set up and everything, and you know that he's coming. You're a little intimidated. I mean, for me, I was very intimidated the first time because I didn't go to school. I didn't go to college. I didn't have these mentors that were critiquing my work. And so the first time that I spoke to him, the first time that I was in a critique with him is very intimidating. And I don't think I really heard anything that he told me just because I was like stuck. I don't know what was going on. I really didn't know. I was afraid.
Yeah.
I was really scared. But, through the process, he really did become a mentor. And talking about the challenge where I revealed my HIV positive status, I think there was a couple episodes later where we had time with Tim alone, and he, really opened up about his experiences and growing up here in New York City in the early 80s, and just really, comforted me. And it was he's a very nice, humble, amazing guy.
Yeah, he gave me a swipe on his Metro card one day. He recognized me, and we lived in the same neighborhood. And I was fumbling with the card, and it kept beeping. And he walks up, and he walks up behind me and goes, "Card's empty." And I'm like, "Oh, Tim." And he goes, "I remember you." And he goes, "Let me give you a swipe." And we rode, and it was right before he was leaving Liz Claiborne. And he was group creative director, and he talked about how you had to shepherd all these talents. It was fascinating.
So because of Tim, you didn't have to jump over the. Good. That's nice. Okay. He's a nice guy. See.
So you weren't, quote unquote, classically trained as some of the people that went on that show then?
No, I wasn't.
So wow. So you were able to? Would you just send in a portfolio of work, or?
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy process. I'm actually leaving this week to start the new casting process.
Oh, so you're going to help recast?
Yes, I'm on the panel. So that's always exciting. I've been doing that for the past
couple shows
6 years or something like that, and it's just been really, really fun to see the talent. And the thing about it is that we see so much talent, we see so much creativity, and there's only a certain small number of people that they can cast. And I like to see them succeed, and I like to see who gets on the show because I don't really know who's going to get on the show. Right. And I watch it as a fan, Yeah. I watch it just like anybody else. I don't want to know who won. I don't know how far anybody got. I'm like a fan. I'm a big fan.
Wow. So in the so you've been, well, you have time to do other things. You're also an HIV AIDS activist.
Yes.
And you had a couple of groups. Do you still do the is it iDesign?
iDesign was sponsored by Merck, and that ended this past year. So that is an old campaign, and that's very interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up because working with that campaign, there were a lot of things that I wasn't able to tap into or talk about, and I feel living with HIV, it's and getting older, I feel like it's evolving, and with new treatments, everything's evolving. And my relationship, I always approach myself as a HIV living with HIV as a relationship. I feel like it's an emotional relationship, and I feel like any other relationship, you have to really nurture it and work with it. And sometimes you really hate it, and sometimes you really like embrace it. And you know what? Whatever it is, you really have to take care of yourself. And
I can imagine that in how you describe that, the relationship is probably like a sine wave, where if it's a doctor visit and you're checking to make sure all your levels are okay, then it's someone on the journey who's standing too close. And then later on, when you're busy with work and you're doing stuff, it's someone who's sitting 10 cars behind you on the train, but they're always there, right?
yes, they're always there, and you always have to check in. And I always tell myself that I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, I need to deal with this. How do I deal with it? I'm like, you have to decide to do it. You have to decide to take, the proper steps to find what works best for you. And it's really an individualized process.
Wow. And I think the step that you just said before that, though, is probably the most difficult, I would imagine, and the one that's really critical is making the decision to own it.
Right. And, I didn't talk about my HIV status for 10 years only because I was very, very scared. And I didn't start talking about it until I started really realizing what I was doing when I was in the hospital with PCP pneumonia and a T-cell count of 14 and basically dying from AIDS. And, the only thing that I kept on going back to was that I am really destroying everything that I've really loved, which is my family and myself and the creative process. And that was really hard.
So were you afraid of people's prejudice, or were you?
Which I still think is very
or were you
front and center
afraid
today,
for
but-
career, or was it just all a combination?
I didn't, that my career hadn't even started at that point. That was right before I got, on the show. I was afraid of telling my parents and my family because growing up in the 80s and also in the 90s, I never even heard my family talk about HIV.
And I think a lot of
Never.
families don't, right?
Yeah.
I think it still happens today, and and that was and so I was very scared. I didn't know how they were going to react, but I am happy to say that after I came out, they really took it upon themselves to educate themselves and become advocates in their own right.
I was surprised you had some of the pre-materials that were sent from us before your visit, and I was some of it I was shocked by, some of it not though, but. To me, it sounds like a high number, but in 2016, there were 40,000 new cases of HIV in this country, which I think is high.
Compared that to 1994. Or
Yeah, and I don't know, and I don't know what
the numbers
I don't know what
quadruple that.
I don't know what the comparison is, but I wondered because when you look at it now, it seems, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to have kind of migrated from gay men to women of color or more people of color, and I'm wondering if the gay community, I'll put in quotes, has kind of taken their eye off the ball with HIV. And, we were doing Don't Ask, Don't Tell and marriage and all these other things. And there still is this HIV
health crisis.
Right, health crisis happening. And
Well, it's definitely a crisis because there's not a cure and there's new infections every day. I feel like within the gay community, it has, there's a lot of things that I'd like to say, but
you can say them.
I think one of the things is that there's some new treatments out there that are allowing people to
be reckless
and irresponsible. And I also feel like there is a generational gap that there's there's like a break in conversation, and I feel like
That's actually a great way of saying it.
Very diplomatic.
No, it's a break in the conversation means like literally it's this 20-minute lull or something, and in that time, some people move on and forget what they were talking about, and suddenly you have two different groups, and they're like we come from the from a generation where I saw many friends pass away from it long before we had treatments, and I used to own an agency, an ad agency that did LGBT marketing, and we were hired to do Virusept, which was the fourth protease inhibitor to hit the market. But that was back when you were talking about medications that were so hard to comply with. Digestive issues, it was X amount of pills a day, whatever, and then eventually we get to the 1 or 2 pills a day regimen. But it seems to me that it was a very gay white male laser focus that got a lot of this on the move, like God's Love We Deliver, Act Up, the whole bit. And the minute that group or that group of individuals began to move out of the zone of danger, it was like, oh, okay.
Right. When we talk about this break in conversation and generations, I feel from what I've seen, and I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I'm 40 years old, so I get a lot of emails from younger people asking me how do they disclose this to their family, or what are the first steps. But then I have older gentlemen telling me thank you for continuing to speak about this, because I feel like there should be a cross-mentoring program for HIV.
That's a generational project.
Yes, I definitely feel like that would improve, and I also feel like because of that gap, people aren't embracing each other, and I feel like that is really the problem in the conversation. I feel like people really need to respect each other and take responsibility.
Well, one of my in the spirit of full transparency, as everyone knows, I used to be director of marketing at Subaru of America.
Grand Poobah marketing.
Marketing at Subaru, and literally the week before I left, I green-lighted Dining Out for Life. Mm-hmm. It was the last program that I approved, the last partnership, and I'm happy to say Subaru is still doing it. I believe now going into its 11th or 12th year, and so I'm very proud of that, and glad that legacy has lived on. And so Dining Out for Life, are you an ambassador? John was calling you ambassador. Are you an ambassador or a spokesperson? How do we want to call you?
You can call me a queen, a prince, an ambassador, whatever you want.
But Dining Out for Life this year is it's Thursday, April 26th. It happens in 70 cities across North America. If you go to diningoutforlife.com, though, you can check your city and find out some dates. Some are doing it on April 19th. There are some dates that happen in different times of the year. And in a lot of places, it's also not only dinner, but it's also breakfast or lunch. And it's a great way for a group of friends to get together, or even if you just want to go on your own, go out to eat. It's easy. Most restaurants donate a portion, and some of them even donate the full amount of your check to the local HIV AIDS organization in your community. So it's such a great program, and I think
you're celebrating.
The one day,
you're in Austin, right?
I'm going to be in Austin, and Austin's date. Well, for us, it's the 24th.
24th.
Yes, but here in New York City, it is the Alliance for Positive Change. They're hosting it for the very, very first time here in New York City. So I'm encouraging everybody that's in the city.
Time,
yes,
right?
Excellent.
Go out there.
And last year they raised over $4 million over the one day. So that's a pretty, when you think about it, that's a nice chunk of change. And again, it stays right in the local communities, and it's easy to do because you're going to go out to eat anyway. We like to go out to eat. So go out to eat at a restaurant that's supporting Dining Out for Life in one of the cities in the U.S. and Canada. I think there's other cities around the world too.
International, yeah.
I get this question a lot from people that know that I'm an advocate or that I am, vocal about my status. They say, how can I get involved? This is the perfect way to get involved. It's so easy. And like you said, you can go eat breakfast, you can go have lunch, and you can go have dinner. And
takeout, you can do takeout and you'll get credit for it.
And like you said, the wonderful thing is that it stays in the community. That's amazing. That's so amazing.
Yeah, it's a great organization.
I have a non sequitur question for you as Tim was going through this. I'm wondering, as a creative individual, if your main outlet is fashion, do you have another passion that you? Is it photography? Is it sketching? I'm just curious. Journaling,
dancing.
Well, I wish I was a dancer, but my parents, my parents were like, nope, boys don't dance when I was 16. I've had this conversation.
Boys don't dance, but I'll make dresses.
That's a whole nother conversation. We'll stop right there. Other creative outlets. Well, I love fashion, but I never thought that I would have this crossover of fashion into advocacy and working with AIDS service organizations. And I feel, for me, if I feel like the next step for me, because I really am very inspired by this HIV community and how they use their voice and how much they embrace each other. And I really want to start a program, A, talking to youth, and B,
Mm-hmm.
injecting some art therapy programs into AIDS service organizations. So I think
that's a great idea.
Something that I want to work on.
Well, we're here to help you. So if you start any of those things, you're always welcome here at the Focus Group.
Yeah.
Now, one last question, because I got an artist in front of me. Are you digital or traditional when you sketch?
Oh, geez, here we go.
Well, he's such a little tech nerd.
Yeah,
So it's,
I just finished a 2-year program.
I think
in
he's got a
character
pad and
animation,
pencil.
like
So
Disney,
you're
Pixar.
a digital guy.
Yeah.
I am a cut and paste guy.
Literally.
Yes, I was doing some graphics, if you want to call them that, for some prints that I was producing, and I actually handed it to a person that actually knows how to use the computer, and he's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's a snapshot."
What
of,
is this?
Yeah, it's a pic of like what I drew out, and I'll even if I screw up, I'll like cut out a piece of paper, draw it the right way, and paste it. It is truly the
Paper
art.
dolls.
Yes, it's the art of cut and paste. So yeah, I guess you would say traditional.
Yeah, your hands-on.
Handsy, yes.
Your hands-on medium. I found that when I was studying animation, if I had this, we often had to draw key poses for characters to hit, and they had to often be exaggerated or line of action. And I would draw it, but I had to scan it in and then upload the JPEG because no one was taking the paper. So eventually a fellow student said, "Why don't you just draw it on your iPad and sending it?" I was like, so it's different. It's not as tactile. That's what we're looking for. There's a tactile quality to cut and paste that's different, right?
I mean, I definitely make it harder for myself. I wish I knew how to do that, but there's some kind of.
What works for you?
Yeah, it's my process.
Yeah.
All right,
That's my excuse.
Great.
Mondo.
Yes.
Pronounce your last name.
Guerra.
Guerra.
I'm just calling him Mondo.
Oh, that's right. We got to the one name. Sure.
Decent.
Before he says goodbye to you, though, we want to give you, and they're purple, a pair of our famous focus group radio socks.
you.
We're designers too,
They'll go very well with this outfit.
I'll make some puppets out of
And-
these.
We want to see those on the
Fashion
Queens
puppets,
on
yeah.
RuPaul.
Yes. Yes. Oh, good
You
Mondo.
idea.
got a bunch more. You can do a whole dress out of them.
Two big
whole
thank yous.
collection,
Thank you
yes.
for joining us today, and thank you for your advocacy for the HIV positive community and for partnering with Dining Out for Life. It's a really, really important thing, and I love where you're going with the generational thought process about crossing that divide. And cross-cultural currents are going to be very useful as we move forward because I'm in the generation, our age now, which we won't share, but
Older.
older. But when I was younger, a
won't
lot
ask.
of guys my age were actually passing away. So there was this whole gap in how do you be an old gay man. I'm more mature.
But that's that whole thing he was talking about, the break in the conversation, which was perfectly said.
Well said. So thank you, Mondo. It's Mondo, singular, Tim and John. We're going to come back after this quick break with a quick shop talk, so stay with us.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more.